morning and welcome to the CHIRP podcast. Today I have Jacob Morales here with us, and I am absolutely excited to hear all about what Jacob's been up to, because if any of you have had a look at who Jacob is and what he does online, like me, you would have found that he is very much under the radar. So let's hope that we get to hear a little bit more about what you do, Jacob, and who you are and why you are here in the world. So if you'd love to start and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story.
Oh boy, there's a lot to that, but I guess long story short, born in the United States, born in Southern California, but really wanted to break out of the traditional education system that I hated, and was getting my master's degree in exercise science, but wanted to live abroad. Really wanted to move abroad before if I ever settle down and have kids or whatever. And so I knew I loved the fitness industry. I knew that I wanted to build real skills like sales, marketing, anything to do to start a business. And so I just started writing down on a piece of paper, how can I move to Latin America, learn B2B sales in the fitness industry and learn Spanish? And lo and behold, maybe 6 months later, I don't know how this happened, but I found a European software company that sold software to gyms that was from the Netherlands. They had a big market share in Europe, but they were trying to expand on this side of the pond to the US, Canada, Latin America, et cetera. And so once I heard that they had an office and they were building a sales team, I sold everything, and I didn't even know hardly what business development representative was, like a BDR or an SDR. So I just was like, that sounds like something I can do. And this is exactly what I've been like brainstorming, praying on, thinking about, and wanting to do for a while. And so I just jumped shipped and moved. And so wound up building sales, and has been building sales teams ever since. That's the long story short of it. I've been in Medellin, Colombia for 6 years, but I'm probably moving back to the States coming up in a month or two. That's the very, very quick and dirty version.
Amazing. So I've also traveled some. You may have picked up that I'm actually South African and not English.
Okay.
And so I've moved from Cape Town to London, and from London to Cape Town, from Cape Town to San Francisco, from San Francisco to Cape Town, and Cape Town to the north of England.
That was one thing that, because I had taken a backpacking trip 2016 to Europe for 2 months. I just went and cruised, and I was fascinated by the rest of the world and how much of how, I guess, well-versed people were with understanding the rest of the world and getting out of their kind of comfort zone and out of their home country and learning multiple languages and stuff. And I'm like, man, that's what kicked off my desire to live abroad. I went all over Europe and realized how many languages people know. And my dad's side of my family is Latin American. I'm like, I don't know Spanish. I'm like, man, why don't I know Spanish? I'm sure it'll pay off someday, somehow, I don't know. But even not, if not, it'll be a great experience. So that's what kicked my move abroad idea off, was meeting people like you all over Europe.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big difference. I find that there's a certain type of person that likes to travel and likes to learn from others. And I think that really broadens your horizons in terms of how you run business, how you understand business, but also your ability to take risks. Like you've just said, you packed up everything, sold up, and off you went, not knowing where you wanted to go. And I think when we moved to the UK, we've done it a couple of times, as I've said, and every time people think we're a bit nuts. I think you need to be a bit, don't you?
Yeah, you got to get comfortable with, especially if you don't know the language. For me, I didn't know the language when I first arrived in Colombia. And so obviously there was an office full of expats. So it was cool. The office was like 60 people. There was half the team was selling to Latin America. So they were from Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, all over the place. But then the other half of the office was from Europe. They were either from the Netherlands, they were from the UK, they were from Ireland, they were from the States, Canada. So I had that group of people, but other than that, I was still learning the language, and you get to know the good, bad, ugly, everything in between about yourself when you move abroad and you're alone like that. Like you get to know yourself, and that can be a scary thing for a lot of people, but I think it's a necessary part of the journey of self-discovery, or however you want to put it. But yeah, becoming your best self.
Obviously, it hasn't been a completely smooth journey. I think I can remember when we first moved from South Africa to the UK. For the first year, my husband hid my passport away from me so I can go home. You got to stick it out for at least a year before you can even think about going home. And actually, you don't realize how much you grow in that year. But when we did eventually go home, I couldn't get back to the UK on the plane fast enough. So I think you definitely grow, even if you don't realize how much you're growing. So can you tell us a bit about those first few years, that growth that you went through? Was it an easy journey, or have you had some real ups and downs?
Total ups and downs. And I was learning, especially because from the outside in, I was a few courses away from finishing my master's degree, which is like the traditional, oh, you have your master's, great, you're going to go do big things, maybe go get a PhD, whatever. And so when I left, it was, you're dropping out to go sell software in Colombia. What are you doing? I don't think people really understood the digital world. Even 6, 7 years ago, like it was a very different landscape of like making money online or online businesses or whatever. And so for me, it was like I took this from the outside in, it was like, what are you doing? But it was so that extra pressure fueled me to make the most of it and actually build the skills that I really wanted to. But at the same time, there were like, I remember days, I think it was like my 3rd month in when I was like, what the hell am I doing? And it was, I had a week where I was just like, I didn't want to go home per se, because I knew that if I went home, everybody would think I was a failure.
Yeah.
I would think I was a failure as well. But at the same time, I was like, man, this is hard. I don't know the language. I was learning. You think about it, like learning sales, learning business, learning marketing, all these things. It's its own little language in and of itself. Even though it's your native tongue, you're still learning like a new skill set. It's almost like learning a new language, right? So you put that on top of me learning Spanish at the same time. And so it was just so much of learning a new country, learning how they do things, a new culture. So it was like so much all at once that it was hard to deal with for a while, for sure. But like those same bad days, you have equal amount of like really great days and incredible days where you meet new people, experience new things, and you get those small wins along the way. And so I think that's important if you're learning a new skill, starting a business, move to a new country, learning a new language, whatever it is, celebrate the small wins, because you're going to beat yourself up the whole way. It's going to feel like you're failing the whole freaking time. But as long as you can maintain that, I think you'll be good. And that's my lesson as well, is like those ups and downs for me. Yeah, it was all worth it because it was fun, but hard and amazing at the same time. It's hard to describe. You probably understand because you've moved abroad and you've lived abroad, but unless you've truly done it, and I think especially for people in the States, I think only 35% of people or 40% of people have a passport. And those people that have a passport typically just go down to Cabo San Lucas, which is extreme, or Cancun, which is very like Americanized. And that's like the breadth of their travel experience. So man, if you're in the States, you got to get out and experience stuff and enjoy it.
Definitely. So I found for myself, because I've moved around so much, and when you go into a new country, you have to really understand the culture and you have to understand people so that you can adapt to situations. And I think that is incredibly powerful in helping you be a good salesperson, because you can start to pick up little nuances and adapt the whole like NLP mirroring and all of that kind of things. I think makes a real difference to how well you can adapt to a country, but how well you can read people. And I do think that makes you a better business owner as well as a better business salesperson.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you're probably right. Never really thought about it like that, but yeah, you're probably right. Definitely does help. I remember in an interview one time, and I was going to be responsible for building a team for multiple brands. And the question I got was, how are you going to do managing 2 different teams? They're 2 different people, like they're 2 different teams. They have different like avatars, all the stuff. And I'm like, and they're 2 different cultures maybe. And I'm like, dude, I came up in an office of all these different cultures. I'm like, this is going to be easy for me. And the guy was like, okay. Like it was like he was like, all right, that's a really good answer. Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess you're right. Made certain aspects pretty easy.
Yeah, definitely. So now tell me that you have worked with some amazing names within the sales and marketing industry, and feel free to name drop, but I'd love to know, how did you best get started? What was the starting point? And then how did it grow from there to, because I think, did you say about 9 really influential business icons?
Yeah, totally. I don't even know if it's that many now, but probably close to it. Been really lucky to get on with some big entrepreneurs. It all started just like a lot of the typical sales story. Mine's a little bit not typical just because I was doing it for a different country and et cetera. But I was literally dialing on a phone with no outbound lists, no nothing. I was literally just using Google Maps half the time because the lists that we got were terrible. They didn't understand how to build The company at the time didn't truly understand how to build an outbound sales process. And so my story is one of wearing a bunch of hats in a startup to build an actual outbound sales team. So I was like writing the scripts, doing the cold calls, figuring out how to build a data team that would actually scrape our total addressable market, find our ICP, and give us lists to go after. Because one Friday, our manager was like, you guys need to scrape your own leads and go source your own leads. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know if it was like arrogance or if it was just like general, just real confidence, probably a mix of both. But I was just like, what am I doing on a Friday, spending an entire day sourcing leads? I'm like, I could get a VA from the Philippines or India or somewhere, something to do this for me. And so that's what I did. And that was like the nexus, that was like the catalyst of building a data team. And so I just took it upon myself to go hire some dude from Fiverr. And I just taught him within 10 minutes. I'm like, here's what you do, go scrape all my leads for me. And then I basically got a day back of calling. So now I could go book more meetings and do all this stuff because my hands weren't tied. So we scaled that team to 10 to 12 people and 30 to 50% of our monthly revenue. And so with that, I think a lot of people get into sales and they think, oh, I can just be a closer, or I have to start cold calling or be an SDR, be a manager. But there are so many like different departments amongst a big sales team that people don't really think about. And so that's one of them, is being able to build the data team, hire VAs, do all that stuff. And then also just sales coaching. So I was also responsible for, as we scaled the team, when I was then closing deals, but then I also help out coaching the SDRs, coaching the BDRs, their process and their dials and all that stuff. And it was during that time, I think this was late 2018, that I closed a gym in Detroit. And the guy asks, hey, do you have any deals with Gym Launch? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. Let me hold on. We don't, and so I got off the call and I Googled it and I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I'll never forget it. Like, it was a divine moment for me, extremely. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to work for this company. This is so freaking cool. Who is this guy? What is he doing? And that back then, Alex maybe had a few thousand on Instagram, and he was not, but I downloaded the podcast. I had his book ordered to my mom's house because I'm like, I don't want to ship it to Colombia. It'll probably get lost. And then I had my mom bring it down to me because she was coming down to Colombia to visit me. And so I just tore into all of his free content. So his podcast and his book at the time. And I would use it in my sales process. And I wanted to apply then, but I'm like, no, there are still things that I want to accomplish at this company before I leave. And I felt like I still needed to build my closing skill set, do a few things there. But yeah, I know I'm rambling here, but that's how I got on and wound up going outbound as well to DM Alex and see what I could do to see if I could find my way in there. And lo and behold, long story short, yeah, I wound up at Gym Launch after that. So I've been working with Alex and Layla. It was amazing.
Really good experience then.
Oh, incredible. It was super cool. I was able to interact with Layla a bit more than Alex in person, just at the strategic quarterly meetups. I would fly in to plan the next quarter or whatever. But both incredible human beings. And I think I just really learned how to be a pro there, like just the level at which they do things. It was full remote. And so this was a transition for me as well. Like right after the pandemic, we had an office in Colombia. So I was used to going into an office, but then we shut it down during the pandemic. And then I left like in the middle of the pandemic, basically. And I think in June or July of 2020 is when I began applying for Gym Launch. And yeah, they actually rescinded my contract. I was going to be a closer, but then they took the lead gen and everything was just going crazy during COVID, They wound up rescinding the contract and I was super bummed, wound up DMing Alex. And every time I DM'd him, I was like, don't do it. You're not worthy. Yeah. He's not going to see it. You don't matter. And so I just kept shooting my shot. Just like, hey, super bummed. I had to rescind the contract. I understand everything's going crazy during COVID, but I know we're going to be working together someday. I just know it. It was this weird conviction that I had. I couldn't describe it. And then that's when he DM'd back and was like, yeah, this is what happened with lead gen and et cetera. And I'm like, well, if lead gen's a bottleneck, here's what I did at my previous company. And then talked about just the outbound sales team that we built. If you're interested and want to figure it out, we can chat. And so that spurred on what then became, a conversation with him and getting on there and basically doing the same thing for him. And
awesome.
Gym Launch, yeah.
Awesome. So so they always say the money is in the follow-up. How many follow-ups did you have to do with Alex to actually get him to take the time to listen to what you had to say? Or was it a lot of follow-ups or was it one or two?
That's actually a great question because at The first company is called Virtua Gym, the first software company. Our ICP was, our ideal customer profile was actually multi-location gyms, open gyms. So they would typically have a department, like a marketing department or a fitness director. So there's like multiple stakeholders within the deal. So I took that mindset into going to gym launch. I'm like, I like to think of it, if you don't know anything about sales, I like to think of it, if you ever seen like a show, like a police detective show, and they've got the whole mob bosses out, they've got the whole tree, and they X out one once they've got one. That's the idea here. And I took that approach with applying to gym launch. And in the middle of COVID, I was just bored, and I applied to one of their roles at Allen. And I wound up speaking with their HR girl. She was like, "You're way overqualified." And I'm like, "I know, I'm just a fanboy of Alex, and I just want to understand what's going on." How is Allen, right? And a month later, the head of partnerships for the office down there in Medellin, he came to me and he said, "Hey, I know a lot about gym launch. You think we could form a partnership with them?" I'm like, "I don't know, let's try." So we requested a demo or a call from their sales team, and we wound up speaking to their team lead. And the team lead, then we tell them we're a software company, we're looking to potentially partner with you guys, we see what you have going on with Allen, blah, blah, blah. And so he connects us with their CTO at the time. And the CTO, we have a chat with him, and we wound up making it all the way into a meeting with Alex. That was probably, I don't know, in the middle of the pandemic, but just a couple months before I had applied. And so I'm sitting there like a fly on the wall, because I'm just like the closer, the head of partnerships. I'm just a closer. Granted, I was like a pretty good performer, but I was just sitting there, a fly on the wall. And at the end of the meeting, I'm like, "Hey, I know I've been a fly on the wall, but I have your book and really like you, man. You're super cool." I was like a little bit of a fanboy moment. Partnership didn't go anywhere, but I had gotten my foot in the door with like their entire organization. I got their head sales guy's personal number and all that stuff. So when I wound up applying, I cold called again the sales team lead. I'm like, "Hey man, I'm applying to the company." So I worked a bunch of different people. Like it wasn't just sell Alex and get on. It was like I had to really maneuver my way around. And then once Alex and I were DMing, I was like, "Oh, I know Jessica, whatever her name was, like the HR girl. She has my resume." So it was like, I know you, because that's a big thing with outbound sales as well, is I know this person within your organization. She told me to reach out. So I made it appear as if I had a lot of connections already within his organization.
Yeah. There's that borrowed credibility almost, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Like just leveraging any type of interaction or relationship that you have with anybody amongst the company or anybody that you're trying to sell as well.
So you mentioned that you had a bit of a fanboy moment and all of that. How much of the sales process is mindset? Like to keep going, sometimes it's really scary. Like maybe they don't answer because they don't like me or that kind of thing. How did you find that you dealt with that imposter syndrome? And is it just about pushing through and having the strong belief in yourself? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I still deal with it. And that's why part of the reason why you don't ever see me online or anything. Like I feel like I should just still be building teams, still have so much more to learn. Why would I share anything? So I still deal with it. And in terms of sales, so much, especially at the beginning, so much of it is about mindset. And so some people don't like the way that I coach sales teams because they think that I'm coming from a place of ego and all this stuff. When in reality, I think so much of the beginning, like a young salesperson, a lot of times they don't know the industry in which they're selling. So they feel like the person that they're talking to is just automatically smarter than them. So they automatically shell up and come from a place of very low status. They also just haven't built the skill set of sales in general. And so they're automatically coming from the place of inferiority. And so especially with the young guys, I'll really try to pendulum swing and come from a place of you're the fucking man, this type of thing, just to give them that little bit of confidence. And because so much of it, especially at the beginning, is just getting the reps in, and there's no substitute for repetition at the beginning, when you're learning sales. And of course, studying and doing all those things on your off time. But yeah, so much of it is mindset. And so like at the beginning, especially with younger reps, I really coach on mindset a ton. And then I get a little bit more technical in which I do coach, or how I lead teams or whatever, in terms of the like art and craft of sales as they begin to progress in their career. Different nuances, mastering the nuances, different things like that. But yeah, so to answer your question, so much of it is mindset and imposter syndrome, overcoming it. Shit, I still face imposter syndrome. I think everybody was watching a video last night about an entrepreneur that's done probably over $100 million in sales throughout his career. And I still deal with it, like no matter what I've built. So I don't think it ever goes away. I just think you just got to act despite feeling a certain way.
So do you have like rituals or systems to help you deal with that, to push through? Does it get easier if you use specific systems?
Yeah, definitely. A big one that I have with SDRs or reps that do outbound dials is just having strict. Can you hear that construction, by the way?
It's fine. I can hear it, but it's not interfering too much, so I think we're good.
Okay. No, so just a simple thing is like just having call blocks within the calendar, like organizing their day to where for an hour they are locked in and dialing 100% of the like time. They're not on their phone, they're not going to the bathroom, they're not having a snack, like they are doing nothing but dialing. That's just something super simple from a sales perspective. I think that helps people can just get over it and move on, but there's nothing you can do besides just doing it while feeling uncomfortable, doing the action of whatever it is that you're doing.
So feel the fear and do it anyway. So I coined a lot of people are scared of posting on social media. And which obviously you're a little bit in that realm, but they're scared of posting every day. And so that's a big change with the clients that work with me, is that it's like, if you want people to know who you are, if you want people to come to you and you want to grow, you have to start posting consistently and frequently. And so they're really scared. So I always tell them, you have to feel the fear and post it anyway. So it's maybe the same kind of thing. Is just get on, pick up the phone, dial, get on, post your messages, and people will start coming to you because they're getting to know who you are as a person.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on. And I think that's a lesson to myself as teachers learn twice. I'm talking about uncovering imposter syndrome with sales. It's the same exact thing with posting content. Yeah, you're right. I don't post content. It's always like I think it's a little bit philosophical for me as well, of the great philosopher Lil Wayne, Dwayne Michael Carter. He's a rapper, but real G's move in silence like lasagna. If you've ever heard that line, I think it's hilarious. And I've always taken to that. But at the same time, I'm like realizing that maybe there's opportunity for me to help people and grow and as a person and share my content and start talking about it a little bit more, especially the ups and downs that I've had, which I don't know if you want to get into on this podcast. I'm totally open to it. Just posted about it recently. So you're right. You're spot on.
I would love to hear more about it, but I just want to say one thing. I find it very interesting that you have worked with people who are very visible. Dan Martell, Alex Hormozi, Ryan Deiss, who did you say, Roland Fraser as well. You've worked with these people who have built these multi-million-dollar businesses by being extremely visible and available. So that you're so shy fascinates me. But I love that you've managed to build that regardless, because it just goes to show that there are different ways to build businesses and social media isn't the only way. So I'd love to hear more about your story and those ups and downs and how it's impacted where you are today.
Totally. And before we get to that really quick, as far as there's other ways to grow a business, I think people have pendulum swung too far to where they're not even that great at their craft, but they want to go and start making big claims and marketing and start talking about it, when it's just be really good at what you do. And then like business will come. And I still have I'm not saying that's me, that I'm so great at what I do that I can just get business. I'm not trying to come off like that at all. But if you're good enough, people will talk about you and say, this guy's legit, you need to hire him. Or this group of people are legit and then you need to hire them. So that's always been the balance for me as well. It's like, why post when I could just get really good at my thing? So it's great debate. It's not a great debate. I think nowadays we're seeing how important like building a brand is for a lot of businesses. And so anyways, but I think a big reason, what you touched on with my story and why I haven't shared is because there were some things that I don't know how comfortable I was sharing. It was right before, it was the same year that I left to go work at Gym Launch, was a year that I nearly killed myself, nearly died. And it was this crazy thing. I was in a very great place in my life, crushing it. I broke a record that quarter sales wise. And then a couple days before Christmas, I was at a party, had been drinking, and I had used cocaine maybe a few times in my life. It wasn't ever a big part of it. It was just like little bumps here and there, but my body just did not tolerate it. And the last time I did it, I don't even have some crazy story where I was like up all night at some big party or whatever. I was literally home sober with my mom when it caused a blood clot near my heart, and I had a heart attack and nearly died. Crazy. I spent a week in the hospital and I spent 90 days on bed rest, not knowing if I was going to need. The doctor basically told me, like, you're going to need a heart transplant. You are going to need a pacemaker, or you'll make a full recovery. And fortunately, I made a full recovery, but mentally it still wears on you, just waking up every day. Because at that point, I'm like, am I going to wake up and am I going to live? And it was at a point in my life where everything was going right. And it felt like everything that I had said I was going to do, I was doing, and doing it at a decent level. And it was just like that self-sabotaging moment almost of doing stupid shit that I know I shouldn't have been doing. And then it nearly costing my life and nearly costing my career. And yeah, it was very eye-opening for me. It was a crazy time. I thought nobody would ever hire me. I don't know, just all these, no person would ever appreciate me. A female would never want to be with me. So all these thoughts go through your head, because I remember getting home from the hospital, and I'd finally walked around the hospital a little bit. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like this isn't even real. I was still in denial. And I took my dog for a walk, and my street is a little bit slanted where my mom lives in California for a week at Christmas. I was supposed to go back to Colombia, and I wound up walking up the hill, and I was like, oh boy, like this is real. Because I started getting lightheaded. I'm like, okay, shit, this is serious. And that's when I was like, all right, I'll listen to my doctor and just be on bed rest. Thought I was a tough guy, but
yeah, you're good.
But yeah, so no, I'm rambling here, but yeah.
Okay, no. So let me ask you this. So I know that life-changing events can have, like, people go one of two ways, and you either, wow, it's a wake-up call and change the way you live life, and just get on with it. And then there's the other way, which is you're not quite sure how to deal with this massive event that's happened in your life. And so you go through the kind of a bit of a roller coaster of, how should I live? Am I going to take life by the balls or not? What do you think your approach was? Has it changed the way you live your life? Has it been a kind of an upward trajectory? Or do you think that you've still struggled a little bit with coming to terms with what happened and how to move forward in your life?
Yeah, I would say both. Because despite the fact that since then there were months at a time where I was in the best shape of my life, like fitness was always a big thing for me, right? Like I was always in the gym industry, always pretty fit. Right? It was something like, it was in my family. But despite the fact that after that event, I had been in the best shape of my life, physically and mentally, career-wise, everything, it's been a roller coaster. It hasn't just been straight up. It's been tough. Because right after that, COVID happened. And so we were on lockdown, like we were in quarantine and all that stuff in Colombia. And my girlfriend at the time, she was like, hey, they're shutting the border down. And this was right after I'd gotten my result back that I was healthy. But my doctor was like, with everything going on, don't fly. We don't know like what this virus is happening. Like, we don't know. It was like early March, mid-March at the time. And so it was just like the very beginning.
Yeah, nobody knew anything. Yeah.
My girl was like, hey, they're shutting the border down. If you don't come in a day or two, you can't come in. And so I was like, I'm going. I'm like, I don't care. That's home for me. I need to get back there. And so I didn't listen to my doctor. I wound up booking the flight and going back. But during that time, it was like quarantine. And so I was like, what the hell is going on? So it was like this extra stress of getting back into work. And then also dealing with what was happening in the world I didn't understand. And so I was like, if this is real, and let's say I'm not fully recovered and my cardiorespiratory system isn't that great, what if I get sick and die or whatever? But there were little things along the line that I was like, this isn't real. I don't think this is real. But at the same time, we were still in quarantine. So I was stressed. I would like, and this is just at the beginning of it, I would use alcohol to cope with the stress. It was like, and that's something that has stuck with me, unfortunately, is use of alcohol to cope with stress. And as stupid as that is, because obviously that's very detrimental to your health, et cetera, it was just what I turned to. And it was just what I knew. And it was like, I'm fine. I would just justify it saying, I'm fine. Like I can do it. It's okay. It helps me escape. But it's been a roller coaster for sure. And it's caused me I've hurt a lot of people. For example, like when I left Gym Launch, I didn't do it in a way that I'm proud of at all. That's my big regret, is I didn't have the emotional attribute traits of somebody that was more even keel and had their shit together. We grew this big team, super stressed, everything was going perfect, but then I started using alcohol again, and it like threw my emotions off. Like anytime I use alcohol, I typically wear my heart on my sleeve as it is, but then you throw alcohol abuse in the mix, and then your ability to handle your emotions just goes out the window, and handle stress and all that stuff. And so you can have rash reactions, all the stuff. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure. Long story short.
Yeah. So how I totally get what you're saying, in that I love a glass of wine or two or three, But I can definitely feel that when I don't drink, it makes a big difference in my ability to handle stress and my ability to problem solve and push through the difficult times. However, having that glass of wine to numb the pain it's just there. It's easy. It's an easy escape. So in terms of you've been through that, you've got that benefit of hindsight. What's the future looking like? Where are you going next, and how are you moving forward and moving through it?
Yeah, it's a super good question. Geographically, I don't need to get back to the States. I've got some partners that live there that we want to work together in person for a little while, and I'm ready to change my environment. I think Colombia has been amazing, but I'm ready to go back and get back to that way of life. Just go. That's on the horizon. And as far as business goes, we'll see. We've been very hands-on with teams, and I think we want to try to step away from being so hands-on with teams and do something a little bit more scalable. I have a heart for young guys that are lost, like I was I call it a quarter-life crisis when I was getting my master's, and I was like, this sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. I think that there's so many people, especially like athletes that are done playing their sport, and they're like, now what? I think sales would really serve them, or any type of sales leadership. There are different roles within sales departments that people need to think about, that I think that people need to be educated on. So I think in the future, get back to the States, probably going to be heading to Nashville, south of Nashville, which is where some people that I know live. And then eventually I'd like to go back or get down to South Florida as well. I just love the melting pot environment there. But professionally, yeah, I think for me, I'm about to take another step in my career. So I think it's been one of like, I've delayed instead of actually getting after it, in terms of like putting myself out there, running ads, doing all these sorts of things. So I think that's the next step, is just like starting to market, whether it's through content or paid ads, VSLs, whatever.
I think what I'd love to see you do, because I think you just have so much knowledge and ability to share and connect with people, is that I think I'd love to see you on a podcast of your own, like connecting with people. There are a lot of young men who don't know how to reach out, and I think that you can connect with them in a very safe way that will then draw them towards you. So I think you could really share a lot of knowledge that way, and it's but a lot easier than paid ads and all that.
Yeah, paid ads it's not the mid 2010s anymore, where you can get 2 cent leads and target all the way down to dogs' names and stuff like that. It's a different game with paid ads now. So yeah, content would be cool. I could definitely see myself doing that. So we'll see.
Yeah, amazing. I can't wait to see you come out of your shell a little bit more and share a bit more of who you are online. I think you've got a lot to share, a lot to teach, and a lot to inspire. And it's hard. It's really hard to break through that initial wall of being very private. But I think if you can do it in an authentic way, which I think you naturally will, forget the scripts and all that, I think you will really start to see people connecting back with you and see the reward.
That'd be pretty sweet. It'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. It has been absolutely wonderful. I'm sure we have lots more to talk about, but it's been so wonderful having you on the CHIRP podcast today. If people would like to connect with you, where would be the best place for them to come and say hi?
Instagram at Jacob F. Morales, F as in Frank, which is my grandfather's, my Hispanic grandfather's old name, his name Frank. So yeah, Jacob F. Morales, at Jacob F. Morales.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we will definitely be following your journey from here on. But thank you so much for joining me today. And that's Leanne Scott on the CHIRP podcast.
Cool. Thanks for having me.